Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, JC Soto, and today we have author, coach, and speaker Gary Barnes. He's also known as America's Traction Coach. Welcome to the show, Gary Barnes.
Well, hey, JC, thank you so much. We've known each other quite a while, and it's really an honor and a privilege to be here.
Thank you. I've been to some of your boot camps, have some of your books, and some of your courses. Can you tell us a little bit more about Gary Barnes International and how you're helping your clients?
Sure, I'd be happy to. You know, as a high-performance business and sales coach, author, and a speaker, my goal in this phase of my business and my life is to really help business owners, sales professionals, and entrepreneurs to maximize the effort, the time, the money that they're putting into their businesses. And what I've found is that people are really stuck. They're really hurting out there. They don't know which way to go. And over the years, I own one of the largest financial planning firms in the U.S., in the top 3% in production. It wasn't the largest as far as the number of representatives, but what I found was the things that I was doing, people were wanting to know how I did it for myself. And I think that's really important, is to really connect with people that it's not just theory, but it's actually something they've done and then really are still doing. And so it really was a cathartic effort. People were asking me what to do. So I created this platform now of sharing how to be more productive, have more time off, have really what I would call a balanced life.
That sounds really, really good especially for business owners like myself. Now you have a saying that you can help people like myself to get some sand on their wheels. What's that mean? What does that mean to people like me?
Really it's about the traction. What's unfortunate is sometimes we misinterpret or how to utilize certain words like momentum. Momentum does not necessarily mean speed. It means movement. And so where a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, sales professionals get frustrated is that they will do something, they will implement a program, a system, a product, and they'll do it so quickly that they miss the points in the community of how they want it, what is it that they truly want to engage in. And so it's what's called rework. We have to back up, redo it, go forward, back up, redo it. And over a period of time, we will start feeling like we really don't have what the community wants. There's nothing that is really unique about us. And the unfortunate part is that usually is a wrong conclusion. They really do. They just don't know how to get it to market in a relevant way.
So that's part of getting sand under your wheels and also making it maybe to that milestone of having a $100,000 a year business. It's probably another milestone that they want to achieve. What are some of the myths that you find some of the clients bring to you that are common in that aspect?
JC, that's a great question because they really are myths. And one of them is that it's hard. And it really isn't. One of the things that I've developed, actually, since you've been to the boot camp, is what I call the $100,000 blueprint. And we look at the different products and services that are fairly common out there, writing a book, having a home study course, coaching, speaking, whatever that may look like for a person, and how really easy it is, especially if you have a product or service that is not just regionally wanted, but worldwide. So we're not needing the results to come from our backyard. It's really across the globe. And there's really three things that I teach that really key into this. Is that, number one, if you have these three things, you will be successful. I just don't know how long that will take. I call it the gestation period. But the first thing is be seen. You're not the best kept secret. And so many people really feel that way. They feel invisible. And unfortunately, here's another one of those myths is that all you have to do is build a website and they will come. Build it and they will come is a lie. It's really about how to be seen in a way that your perfect client sees you as their perfect solution. it also turns the tide or turns the whole process around. Instead of chasing people, people are starting to come towards you. And I think most of us really hate the quote or the concept of going out and selling someone, converting someone, convincing someone, and we just don't want to do it to someone else because we don't like it done to us. The second thing is to be safe. And that, to me, is to going into any relationship, any connection, without an agenda. Today, JC, I don't have an agenda doing this program outside of touching at least one person that they can get something from our call today that will help them move forward in some way. That's the only agenda I have. So it's not about me. It's truly not about you. It's about the people that are investing their highest asset that they have, and that's their time. And the third key is to be relevant. And what I mean by that is that where they take their product or service from a need to a desire or a want on the part of the consumer. We sometimes will identify, here's a product or service that is really needed. But unless the consumer sees that it is now a want, we're ahead of the curve. And so if we have these three elements, again, you will be successful if you stay in the game.
That's really important. Now, when they make the effort to build this business and apply these three elements, what are the fears that you see that run into when they try to move forward?
Yeah, and I think the very first thing that comes to mind when you ask that is it's really not a fear, but a belief. And that belief is that they do not deserve. And then the fears start coming around that they're not smart enough. They don't live in the right area. They weren't educated in the right way. Whatever the concepts or the fears that will come up to justify that belief. And so we have a lot of inaccurate information coming, and because of that, we can sometimes feel like we're standing in a field of mines, a minefield. And so we're afraid to step in any particular direction because it can be very devastating. Another fear is not wanting to make a mistake. And the reality is we're going to make mistakes. And that goes back to a concept that I teach around launch and adjust. Because unless we get a product or service in the marketplace, if we're listening to our consumers, we don't know exactly what they want or how they want to really connect to that product or service. And so as we launch, we're going to get that information, and then we can adapt to that particular market section that we want to have connected to that product or service. And so the feeling of being wrong or bad or wanting not to, here's another fear. I won't be accepted by my peers, maybe even my relatives. It's a common thing to have happen that when someone really moves out and starts to show up in an authentic way, people that we think are going to be there to support us, sometimes they're not. And it's not because of you. This is a crazy kind of thing about it. It's not about you. It's really about them. Because in essence, they feel like you're leaving them, but you're really not. You're inviting them to come with you, and they've chosen not to. And so the fears can come up, and where it's really important is to identify if that fear has legitimate concerns. If there's something that we're doing, maybe we've overextended. We're jumping into a business. We have no money. We have no reserves, and we're just hoping. We're kind of taking that risk on green 32 on the roulette wheel. And if it comes up, great. If it doesn't, we can really be in a world of hurt. Those are real fears. The other fears, will anybody ever, connect with me? There's another fear, JC, that's really interesting. Sometimes the fear is going to work too much. It's going to work too well. You're going to have too much business, and you're not going to be able to deal with that. So fear is, I tell people all the time, they're very creative in some of the things that they come up with, but we deal with them because even though they may not have a true connection to reality, they are still real and have to be dealt with.
That's very true. We make our own stories, huh?
Oh, yeah. And we do get very creative.
So how do you get them to move past those fears or limiting beliefs to finally get to that point, to that level that they've been working so hard for so long to get to?
Again, that's really a key point, JC, because it's somewhat not getting past them, but getting to understand them. And when we turn the focus away from ourselves, one of the things I say about me is I am the subject, but I am not the message. I open the door to individuals to come in, but it's up to them to come in. And so when we start looking at how are we serving that community, how we are serving that perfect client, that niche, if you will, and now we can get it beyond ourselves because now we're serving the community. And the fears will, when we come up to that, it's almost like chasing a mirage or chasing the rainbow. As soon as we get there, it's not there, it moves forward. And so as you get closer to some of these fears, they actually lose their empowerment. They lose the destructive potential of getting us stuck. Because fear is actually good. Again, there's God-given fear. You're on the railroad track. You might want to move. Or it's that false fear, the things that we've created in the story that has no real bearing and no empowerment unless we give it that. And it makes us stuck. So it's as we move through, and it's really in that movement, because we can get so much information. I call it information constipation. We can get ideas from every person around us, and it's probably going to be a little different from every person. But in reality, the bottom line is you have to make a decision. You have to step out and to see what the results are so you know what to do next time.
Interesting. And when they look for a coach to help them get to that other level, what are misconceptions or some of the perceived obstacles that you experience with some of the clients you have?
Well, this is a really interesting question because it's a question that I actually had to ask myself as I've engaged my coaches personally for me. And one of them is that it's very expensive. And anytime we do anything in our businesses that we see as a growth potential or something that's going to help us build our businesses, if we see it as an expense, normally that's an indicator not to do it. But if you see it as an asset, something that's going to allow you to multiply your returns or to be able to save time, which is in essence saving money. So if you transition whatever that decision is from a liability, a write-off per se, to an asset that's going to help you move forward, that's one of the biggest mindset changes that we have. I remember there was one of my coaches a number of years ago. I was at home and I was telling my wife, who in the world would pay me? It was $1,200 a month, whatever it was. And she looked at me and she goes, well, you do. And I'm going, oh yeah, I do. And so really it's that exchange of value. It's really not a dollar decision. It's a value decision. What are you getting as a return on that investment? And unfortunately, when we start doing this for the first time, JC, this is something that is fairly new in the last year and a half that I've been teaching. I asked audiences around the country and actually around the world, what is it that your client, the first time they engage with you, what are they buying? And I'll get answers like, I'm buying the person, I'm buying the product, I'm buying the results. I go, that's all true, but there's something underneath that. And it's what I call borrowed belief. At that moment, the first time they engage with you, your product or service, they are borrowing your belief that what you are saying is absolutely true. Now, the challenge is that they may have heard those words from someone else. They may have done some programs that are similar that hasn't produced those results. So that moment is that borrowed belief. And then it's the moment they start getting some results, no matter if it's large or small, now that belief comes back internal to them and it goes much faster. But really it's very expensive. What is it that I'm going to get out of it? There's, we get a lot of reasons why we shouldn't do things rather than why we should do them. So we need to be looking at the questions that are going to serve us, not going backwards.
So that's part also of the stories that we tell ourselves. Sometimes we refuse to invest in ourselves in a meaningful way.
Right.
And we prefer to sometimes put our financial resources, something that is not going to really leave positive results, that's going to make a big difference in our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, when people get going, with these business owners finally get going and they get, working on these plan to make it to $100,000, that's probably one of the biggest goals they have up to that point. What kind of mistakes you see that they make on the way to get that goal achieved?
It is I call it this glass ceiling. The $100,000 level is a mental ceiling that many people have put on themselves. If I can only get to $100,000, life will be wonderful. And really, it could be. But once you get to $100,000, really the process from that is just duplication. It's expanding. And so the reality is not doing things quick enough, not engaging, thinking that they're going to be able to do it on their own. Whether it be service like a virtual assistant or other people that have, for me as technology, it's details. I have to have people that do that with me on my team because that's not my core. When we start doing things outside of what we're really good at, it will slow us down because it'll just take longer and we're going to make more mistakes. And so here's something that I use for myself. If I am not enjoying what I'm doing, normally that's something I shouldn't be doing. And there's a lot of ways to get some of those details, tasks done by other people. And here's another fear, that if I give that task to someone else, it's not going to be done as well as I do it. Well, that may be true, but the reality is, how are you paid? What is it that you do that creates revenue? Because I would guess pretty much every person that is listening to this call is the rainmaker, the person that is actually generating the revenue for their product or service. And if you're stuffing envelopes, if you're doing a mass mailing or an email campaign or doing all that stuff, yes, could you do it? But should you do it? Is it being done by someone? Could you get it done cheaper than what your value is in your business? So give, for example, if you're receiving from your product or service maybe $50 an hour, should you be doing a $10 to $15 activity? The answer is no. But here's a formula that I've used for years. When do you know you should offload or be able to? Because, again, it's about revenue to be able to do that. And I look at it about 130% of volume activity that I can do before I start bringing on somebody to do that task. What you're doing is that 100% to 130%, that 30% can pay now that other person to do that task. And so as we grow, we've got to be in balance. I use the analogy of surfing. The surfer, the total energy is to get up on top of the wave. Once they're on top of the wave, it's about balance. The wave is creating the energy to move everything forward. In sports, it's called the zone. And we've all been there at times. And so really the key here is how to get to that wave, to get to that zone the quickest. And so looking at options, but not just throwing money at the wall, hoping that the promises everybody is saying they're going to get.
That's amazing. And once you have someone, like we have some of the listeners on the phone, do you have maybe a simple 3-5 step, maybe tips that you can give to the listeners to get started? Something that will help them at least getting to the process of getting moving towards any particular goal that they might have.
I'd be glad to. The first thing is to become very clear about the end result that you want. The Stephen Covey concept, begin with the end in mind, is so critical. If we don't know where we're going to be wandering in the wilderness. Then looking at what are you good at? What is that passion that you have? Identifying it in a way that is it transferable to other people? Is there a product or service, a book, a home study course, whatever that thing is, or a tangible item that somebody, again, looks at and says, I not only need it, but I now want it. And then looking for resources. What is it that you're good at? What are the things that we need to look for as far as a support? what I have found over the years, and I have to admit I'm the same way, I have a hard time asking for help. And help doesn't always mean we have to pay for it, but many times there's a small investment or with technology, with companies like Fiverr and some of these offloaded organizations now that you can get quite a bit done for very little investment up front. And then looking for that position of how can you be seen. If you're going to networking events, if you're speaking, if you're writing articles, blogs, whatever it is where your people are going to be hanging out, how do they know you're actually there? And this is that be seen proposition. And then get going. It's the Nike, just do it. We don't know where the gold is. I love the show on Discovery called Gold Rush. They go into a gold field and they put through, I think it's 2,000 yards of dirt or 200,000. It's a large number. It's a lot of dirt to find 1 ounce of gold. And what they do is they get rid of everything that isn't gold, and the gold settles to the bottom. It's the same concept of finding the needle in the haystack. If you go looking for the needle, it's going to take you forever. But what you see most of is the hay. Get rid of the hay, the needle exists. And so the very last thing is people will come to them and they will actually rob them of their most valuable asset that I talked about a few minutes ago, and that's their time. And so it's a now, later, or never. Is it a person that wants to engage now? Is it a later or never? A later or never connection can just be, allow the timing to be whatever it is. But to focus in on the people that are ready so you don't have to convert. You just have to explain, open the door, and those that are ready and relate to you will come through it.
And now, I know you talked about how you started coaching people. Can you give us more details? What inspired you to go out and help all these business owners that are, in a way, they want to get moving, but they can't get out of their own way? Can you give us a little more about what inspired you? What was the spark that got you started?
It's really kind of an interesting story because I never planned to do this. What was happening is that my clients that I was working with as a financial planner, they kept seeing my business growing and growing. And they were coming to me and saying, if you can show us how to build our businesses the way you have shown or how you have built yours, would you do that? And so it grew out of an organic sense of people seeing what I had been doing. And I sold that financial planning practice about 18, 19 years ago. And so I've always been on stage from the very beginning. My early background was psychology and theology, and then was in real estate for 9 years and then built the financial planning practice for about 33. And through the whole process, it was just I took all of those elements that I had been using for all that time and put it into the coaching arena. And so my wife also says if I have an audience of one, I'm happy. So I enjoy connecting and hearing people's story. The unique thing about that second element of success, the be safe, is that when I connect with somebody, I truly want to know who they are, not necessarily what they do or what they can do for me. It's about, what makes them unique. And this is what we also translate into the people that I work with, whether they be individual business owners or manufacturing firms or everything in between. It's how to help them become a celebrity. And when I say that initially, they usually go, well, I'm not a celebrity, but yet they are. Because my definition of celebrity is how you are different from, what makes you unique, not better than. And so there's room for all of us. Everyone is unique in our own way. And that also then leads back to the first key of how to be seen. And when we have that, it's something that I've just enjoyed working with people in all walks of life. And to be able to see the dreams and the hopes that they have had for their businesses actually escalate, and they can have the true reality of having it all. They can have the revenue, but they can also have the balance to enjoy that revenue with their family and then for future generations, actually. So it's really, that was a long explanation, but there was no general intent that I was going to go in and do this, but I enjoyed doing it so much. I have clients in 7 countries throughout the U.S., obviously here in Denver, but everyone is different. That's what keeps me engaged.
Well, I'm sure we're all glad that you got into this line of work, becoming a coach, because we have learned a lot from you. And if someone wants to find out more about Gary Barnes and Gary Barnes International, how can I get a hold of you?
You know, Gary at GaryBarnesInternational.com, and I answer all of my personal emails. They can also look at GaryBarnesInternational.com. That's the website. They can find out about the events that we have. I only do 2 3-day business building boot camps per year. The next one will be in August. So there's a lot of resources there. What I would suggest is they could just email me, tell me a little bit about what they're looking for, or where they're stuck. I again like the story. And then there's free resources that I can direct them to as well. They don't have to, don't be afraid. I'm not going to sell you, but I'm going to, I love making referrals and connections. And to me, it's about really helping one to help one for them to go out and touch others in the same way.
And all these links to contact Gary are going to be below this recording. Again, GaryBarnesInternational.com. And I know for a fact that he answers all his phone calls, his emails. He's really active on Facebook. So anywhere you want to find Gary, he's there. And Gary, I want to thank you for taking time off your busy schedule to give us some good ideas on how to get going in our own business. And this is not only about business. A lot of these lessons apply to life also. And I want to really thank you and wish you the best. Hopefully we can connect again and maybe do some lunchtime soon. And thank you for coming along. And thank you, everyone, for listening in. And again, the links to all his contact information is going to be below this recording. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.